Thank you very much. Nice to see everybody. Welcome to our talk. We hope you're going to have fun today. Just a quick show of hands, if I may. How many people own Roland or Boss products? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, you too. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Get the rest of you later. There's hugs outside from my team. You paid for our Slim Chickens supper last night, so thank you very much. We're from a group, the Roland people are from a group called Roland Future Design Lab. Very briefly, Roland Future Design Lab is an R&D group, a global R&D group in Roland that focuses on frontier technologies. So AI, immersive experiences, all this kind of fun stuff. That's what we're focused on. We're out in front of product R&D. We're not charged necessarily with building finished things. We want to research opportunities, test and validate ideas through proofs of concept, and then bring our work back into mainline product R&D. That's kind of our perfect loop. Reality is we do all kinds of stuff outside of that as well, but that's kind of our story. Joining us today is Alfie Bradic from Neutone. I'll let Alfie tell the story about Neutone in a little bit when we bring him up. So why music DIY? The session is called DIY Next. What could be next with DIY? Why is Roland thinking about DIY as well? Well, quick little retrospective, and I probably don't need to share this with you, but just so that we're all on the same page. DIY and music creation are genetically linked, right? We know that the cultures are completely intermeshed. And whether we're talking about beautiful handmade Appalachian wooden dulcimers or kalimbas made from candy tins, whether we're talking about the great composers and how they worked in a very informative loop with instrument designers to help them realize their musical visions. A little bit more recently, we think about the works of John Cage and all of his followers in the realm of prepared piano, and then all of the kind of the organic treatments of instruments. And then probably very relevant for this group in the realm of music technology, we see DIY as really the center point of the modular culture, and then bringing that into the software realm on platforms like Max for Live and Reactor and whatnot. So they're absolutely connected. What you may not know is that Roland actually has a very long history with DIY. Anybody recognize that brand there? No, Roland people don't count, Sammy. Because there was actually bonus points. You were going to win a car if you could tell us what that was an acronym for. So AMDEK was a brand that we introduced in 1981. Who was alive in I'm not going to ask that. That's not fair. 1981. AMDEK stands for, and get ready for it, Analog Music Digital Electronic Kit. So every popular word from that era, we threw into an acronym, and that became AMDEK. So interesting is that for about 3 years, AMDEK produced music products, music technology products in kit form. And so there were guitar pedals. You could buy an AMDEK distortion pedal as a kit and build it yourself. There was a drum machine. There were line mixers. And so it was really, really part of our culture for a very long time. So this is, if you haven't seen them, you can find these, by the way, if you go onto eBay or Reverb or anything like that. You'll still see AMDEK kits. Many of them are built now. Occasionally, you can find one that's still in its kind of clamshell packaging, which is really, really cool. But yeah, DIY has been part of our story for a very long time. Anybody recognize this brand? Right. So this is Roland DG. DG stands for Digital Group. And so in 1984, we actually rebranded AMDEK as Roland DG. And today, Roland DG exists. They're a very successful company. They focus on large format color outputs, so big inkjet printers, vinyl sign cutters, digital fabrication machines, things like this. That's kind of Roland DG's realm. But their heritage is analog music, digital electronic kits. Our world, which is really interesting. But we think there's a real opportunity today, and you're probably familiar with a lot of these high-level data points. Somewhere between 80 and 100 million estimated active music makers in the world, or about 1% of the global population. But as soon as you take the next step up on that ladder, and we start to think about what the digital streaming platforms want to call the superfan, the casual musician. Estimates place that at a number that's higher than 1 billion, and maybe even higher than that. So 1/8 of the population. That's a big pool. But then we start thinking about where DIY intersects with this as well. And we've seen some research emanating from the maker community that says that an estimated 20 million makers worldwide are actively invested in experimenting with music and audio technology as part of their maker projects. Personally, I think that's an underestimate. I think the number is probably higher than that. I can't substantiate that, but consider that a minimum. If you do generational research like we do in RFDL, or if any of you are from Gen Z or Gen Alpha, or you have kids from Gen Z or Gen Alpha, you know that this is a very hands-on culture. They're very creative, but they're also very hands-on. They want to engage with things in a very tactile, very kinetic way. So we've got this, what we call a generational pool. Business talk, we see a market gap. There are brands and some larger brands that have, smaller investments and forays into DIY. But there's nobody that's really, really leaned into this from the larger global brands perspective. And then finally, what's really interesting for us, because we're really interested in connecting with and growing communities, that's been one of Roland's hallmarks of our brand for almost 55 years, is that there's a real virality to the activity in the maker world, and sharing designs, sharing know-how, sharing tips and tricks, sharing successes, sharing failures. That's all part of, those are all signposts of maker culture. So we've really wanted to explore this more, and we've wanted to learn this from the inside out. And can we revisit some of the principles that had us establish a brand called AMDEK back in the early 80s? Is there still an opportunity for us there? Are we welcome in that space? So today we're going to introduce you to something that we call Project Lydia. You're going to see it. You're going to hear it. In Roland Future Design Lab, we work in the language of proofs of concept. So for us, Project Lydia here, it's a technology preview from Roland Future Design Lab and our partners at Neutone. It's built on the de facto standard Raspberry Pi 5 and the Pico hardware interfacing platforms. So that's really the first time that we've kind of gone into this area of DIY in this fashion. What it does is it brings Neutone's proprietary neural sampling technology to this DIY platform in a very compact, very efficient way that allows you to touch and play with AI in a very musical way. And even if you've experienced and worked with AI on the desktop, many of those experiences probably for us have been asynchronous. For many of you, for me, this was my first chance to actually put my hands on AI and make music with AI as I would a musical instrument or an effects processor or something like that. This is kind of the roadmap that we're thinking about for Project Lydia. So you can see that we've got a first phase and a second phase. We're in the first phase right now. Project Lydia comes to life today. This is it right now. You're the first people to hear this story from us. The second phase begins, almost immediately. We're going to start taking feedback. There's an online survey that we're going to invite you to participate in a little bit later that will allow us to gather feedback from the community. And we're going to feed that forward to help us develop phase 2. That's Project Lydia. This is a Canadian road case. This is a toque, we call this. That's Project Lydia. You get to hold it first. Thanks. Pass that around. Come off, Sammy, walk through this hill, please. And with that, I'd like to bring up Ichiro Yazawa, and he's going to talk to us about the hardware that some of you are now getting a chance to hold.
Thank you, Paul. I'm Ichiro Yazawa in RFDL's Advanced R&D Group, and today I'll talk about hardware of the Lydia. These are some photos my colleague assembling the Lydia prototype. I think you can recognize the panel with 4 knobs on it. And it is easy to assembling and disassembling. And you will find Raspberry Pi logo on the board. So this is a Lydia hardware concept. And we decided to combine the function of the Neutone morpho as a hardware in order to combine the independence of the musical instrument and intuitiveness and real-time operation, rather than the integrated as a software synthesizer. So moreover, the application of the AI as a musical instrument is still just the beginning. To make it easier to experiment with many ideas, so you will need to have a design that can be disassembled and customized. And we would like to make this attempt possible, not only Roland and Neutone team, but also as many people as possible in the future. And we believe that the DIY method using the Raspberry Pi platform is suitable. And the main modules are Raspberry Pi Pico and Pico 5. And Raspberry Pico controls a human-machine interface called HMI. And Raspberry 5 is primary for AI processing. And Lydia uses the latest version of the Raspberry Pi OS. And this is a detailed connection diagram of each module. And 4 rotary encoders with a switch and 2 foot switches and LED. And 3 color LEDs are connected to Raspberry Pico. And the Pico is connected to Raspberry 5 via USB MIDI. And Pico is in charge of semantic and serializing event that occurred in HMI. And on Raspberry 5, Neutone morpho is running, and USB audio interface Rubix 22 are connected to Raspberry 5 in phase 1. And but in phase 2, we are going to remove this audio interface and build into the Lydia hardware. And this is a much more detailed diagram of the connection between the Pico and HMI. Encoders and the switches are read to GPIO, and the 3 color LEDs are use PWM mode. And the Lydia is designed for efficient controlling Raspberry 5, and the morpho engine doesn't use much CPU power. So it won't get hot, but it's also designed to run applications that use a lot of CPU power within the lower latency in the future. And the bottom case has many slits to draw air in from the bottom and exit to the side. And to achieve intuitive operation, we will initiate trial and error to find the best user interface. For this reason, we will prepare hardware configurations that can easy to experiment with, adapt general purpose chips and computer modules, and make it easier to use open sources that are published on the GitHub and other sources. So this photo is the first prototype taken to the Neutone team, and and we just started integration. And thank you to Tokui-san and Andrew and Alfie of Neutone team. And also thanks to Roland Japan team and also Roland Malaysia team for designing this hardware. Okay, so now I'm stop here and let's invite Alfie for next topic. All right, then. Thank you very much, Yazawa-san. Thank you very much, Paul. So obviously, Roland doesn't need any introduction at all, but please allow me briefly to talk about Neutone quickly. So Neutone is a creative software studio based in Tokyo, and our founding philosophy was to bridge the gap between the AI audio research community and artists and musicians who wanted to kind of leverage these new technologies in their existing workflows in the DAW. And with that in mind, on the right you see some plugins. With these we maintain an open source SDK, and these are free plugins you can check out, and you can host community developed AI models and play with them. A bit more recently, with this one on the left, this is Neutone Morpho, and this is what's running currently on Project Lydia. And basically here, it is a real-time timbre transfer kind of effect, and it's incredibly exciting, and I'll give you a demo in a little bit. A bit of housekeeping before we move on. Obviously, AI, we take these kind of things very seriously. So we are committed to the principles of music creation with AI. And as an example, you can see on the right here, this is a screenshot from the Neutone Morpho plugin. We list exactly where our training data comes from. If we can't record something ourselves, we'll find something that we have the rights to use. We don't steal, we don't scrape or do anything kind of nefarious. And we're really committed to kind of user-driven sounds as well. We want people to create their own kind of musical personality with this new technology. We think data sets are an art form, and we try and accommodate that. We do all of our processing on device, so you can take our plugins offline, perform with them on stage. We have an artist collaboration program where users can publish their models for a 50-50 revenue split. This is our attempt to give a new revenue stream for artists who are finding it increasingly difficult to monetize their creations. And as I said, we have an open source SDK, which you should check out. So Project Lydia currently, it looks a bit like this, the workflow. You start with some audio data. This could be really anything that you find kind of sonically interesting. You do some model training online. It's a cloud GPU service that we operate. That spits out a Neutone Morpho model, which you can then just drop on Project Lydia and perform with it on stage. But of course, this is phase one. We alluded to phase two earlier. We hope to perhaps expand to our Neutone SDK, and then you could potentially wrap, any kind of PyTorch model that you see fit, or even go beyond that if you like. So why is this interesting? Why would you want to be doing this? I'm going to try and keep it kind of light on tech, and give you a bit of kind of more of a musical reason why you should be excited about this. And I'm trying to phrase it in this concept of neural sampling here. And so the definition is a bit like this: a music production technique using artificial neural networks to generate new sounds by sampling from a latent space rather than from recorded audio. So we think there are a lot of parallels with existing sampling kind of methodology. You think of like the life cycle of a traditional sample. It begins life as sound. It gets recorded to some kind of medium. That could be analog tape or digital, MP3, whatever. FLAC, I think I see Josh somewhere. And what you do with that is you then retrieve it. And you retrieve it in a new musical context for kind of creative purposes. So this kind of storing and retrieval still applies here. It's that you're retrieving from the model's understanding of sound rather than some kind of linear, time-based kind of representation of sound. And perhaps you've seen this diagram before. It's like being back at school. You've got an encoder-decoder pair here. And this is kind of one of the many approaches to kind of achieving this timbre transfer technique. You have an encoder which categorizes sound during training. So in here we have a violin. So it learns kind of the characteristics of a violin and encodes it to a latent space, denoted by this Z here. And then the decoder takes that information, this kind of low compressed representation, and it decodes it into violin sounds. The trick here is once training's done, you can throw something else through it, like a piano here, and you will get this kind of transformation kind of technique. So you're exploiting the weaknesses of the limitations, I should say, of the model for creative purposes. Okay, cool. So why is this actually relevant at all? So I think throughout history, we've seen that the medium of sound has a huge impact, and we've come to celebrate the quirks and the idiosyncrasies of all kinds of kind of audio storage mediums.
There's this brilliant quote by Brian Eno here where he says, "Whatever you now find weird, ugly, uncomfortable, and nasty about a new medium will surely become its signature." And I think we're getting in kind of that territory here with neural networks. So I'm sure some of you here have written your own tape saturation or vinyl crackle or bit crushing, these kinds of effects. And I think neural sampling and kind of neural networks have their own contribution, kind of emotional and creative. And just to hammer that home, that point a bit more, I've got the lo-fi button on the Roland P6, which is a celebration, I think, of this kind of way of thinking. One more. This is sonic recontextualization. The idea that you can take sounds that are not musical, and by virtue of passing sounds through Lydia in this case, they are made musical. And this is not a new idea. It's been around for almost over 100 years now, I think, with musique concrète in the 1940s. They were recording trains and stuff, and all sorts of weird things. And even earlier than that, Luigi Russolo's The Art of Noise manifesto. So he was living in the Industrial Revolution, and he was saying, well, the orchestra of the future will not be strings and brass, it will be noise and machines and these kinds of things. So this is not a new idea, but we're playing with it from a brand new cutting-edge kind of approach. All right, so I think we're kind of time-wise, we're getting on a bit, so I'm just going to skip through this fairly quickly. So it's really hard, as we found out, to put kind of latent parameters on a hardware device. With software, you can change screens, there's context, different models have different parameters. So in easy mode, you've got frogs and insects for a model trained on nature sounds. That's quite easy, but sometimes things get a bit kind of esoteric, and one of our artists, Portrait XO, she named her parameters I, Buzz, You, and Fluffle, and I think that kind of encapsulates it. Sometimes it doesn't need to make sense, but we don't have that luxury with hardware, so we have a tone and a dynamics knob, and we use principal component analysis, PCA, to do some dimensionality reduction and scaling and offset kind of operations on them. Anyway, I've waffled on for too long. Here is Project Lydia in action.
All right, here we are. This is Project Lydia, and it is a blast to play with, and I really hope that comes across in the snippets I have in this video. So the parameters here are fairly straightforward. You might think, oh, well, there's not much to tweak here, but actually what you send into the model is how you influence the output. It really reacts depending on what you're doing pre-Lydia, which is kind of a unique paradigm. So you might set these controls up into a general ballpark that you're happy with, general tonal balance, etc. And then you will actually have fun playing with, your filter cutoff or your attack or whatever. If you're on a guitar, you might pick harder or roll down the tone pot, and that's going to have an influence on the way this responds. And of course, that's also dependent on the model you have loaded. So there's a lot of variables, and those variables are in the music. They're not in the controls. And that's kind of an interesting thing you don't really see very often.
Thank you to Alfie from Neutone for preparing that demonstration for us. Again, we're just showing the razor's edge of what Project Lydia could be, and it's important to keep it in mind. Again, this is a technology preview from Roland Future Design Lab, so you can't go to stores and buy it just yet. If we get enough positive feedback, then perhaps that's something that we can bring to market a little bit later next year. First time, you're seeing it for the very first time here. Our launch stories, if you visit Roland.com and look for Project Lydia, our launch story invites you to participate in a survey. That's the link to the survey, if you wouldn't mind. We'd love to get your feedback. We're looking for your attitudes and your opinions around DIY, AI and musical instrument and effects processing hardware. Is this something that you want to see from Roland? Are you interested in this? And so on. You've also heard us mention AI for music and our very intentional correspondence with the principles for music creation with AI. If your brand isn't partnered with AI for music yet, please, by all means, scan this QR code. You can visit the aiformusic.info website, or you can come and talk to us on the stand. So in about 10 minutes, Project Lydia will be live downstairs, and you can come and play it. On behalf of Roland Future Design Lab and Neutone, thank you very, very much.